Hi second years. Right, so I'm making this video because I forgot to record this afternoon session, and hopefully I can make it more efficient and shorter than what we did in the afternoon. You can have a look at these sets of notes that I kind of discussed with those who were present. I've just want to clarify marks and submission that what I'm doing is I'm allowing everyone 1 week to catch up with all the work they haven't submitted, and I will still mark that work. So by Wednesday next week at 5 o'clock you have to do that. And then I want to stress that it's super important to understand these first lessons, because without them you simply won't cope. The pace is going to have to pick up. Well, not pick up, but at least it's going to be quite fast, and I'm not going to revisit the old material unnecessarily. Then my submission rules for work to date have been quite lenient, or at least I'm trying to sort of help you sort of provide carrots rather than sticks, but it's just too difficult to manage, so I'm going to restrict my submission date to 1 day. So you'll get, if you submit something on time, you get 10% instantly, so just for submitting. And if you don't do it by the time that I've set the deadline, then there's a 5% per day penalty for 4 days, and thereafter I'll give a 0 mark. I don't want to do this, but I have to manage it. You guys have to come to the party and submit work, and I'm willing to entertain requests for extensions, but then they must be timeous and preferably sort of a group thing if possible. Then the sixth point. All right, so from now on, please submit all your drawings as PDFs rather than as solid draw files to go with solid part files. What have I written here? This is incorrect. So except for parts that are SolidWorks files that are asked for, like part files or SolidWorks assemblies files. But I'll clarify that as we go. And then, absolutely important, your file names have to follow my format. Otherwise, I'm going to take it as a non-submission and send back a note to you to ask you to rename them. Because just managing the files, figuring out who did what when, is a nightmare. It's taken me 3 days this week just to get that right. So please, file names must be clear as to who did it, what the project is, which part it is, and which issue. So today I wanted to deal with the things we've dealt with in the last 3 weeks, and I want to focus on just a few of those aspects. So the first one is, or the first few are, the relationship between tangency, parallelism, and perpendicularity, and why tangency is such an important concept to grasp. So let's go to another page. Let's go to this bottom drawing, and the reason I'm showing it in Rhino rather than SolidWorks is that this is sort of absent of all the dimensions and all the other stuff, and it's quicker, and also I can start showing some sort of relationships using these points that appear in Rhino drawings. Okay, so as you see, when I highlight this filleted corner, I forget what these are called, the vertex points I think they're called, the vertices. The vertices show what kind of relationship there is between this curve, for instance. Let's just explode that so I can show you. Alright, so there, between this curve and that line, and obviously this curve and that line. And it's really essentially a relationship of perpendicularity and, well, not parallelism, but tangency. So I'll explain that now. This item here you can see that that line there, that bottom line, lines up with these vertices. It's in the same plane. So what that means is that the relationship between this upright line and that line is tangent. So let's just draw that in quickly. I mean, not tangent, perpendicular. Okay. And the relationship between the upright and this line here is also perpendicular. And okay, so if I rotate this point about that center point is the same center point as for this radius. If I rotate this, you see that relationship remains the same. So tangency, which is what happens between this curve, just explode it again, what happens between this curve and that line there, that line there, is the same as perpendicularity, and that perpendicularity is carried through. So really what tangency means is that the relationship between this line and this line is determined, in a sense, by this perpendicular line. I hope that wasn't too complicated. If it was, let me know and I'll try and simplify it. So let's just go back to that. So you'll see as I rotate this, there we go. Obviously from that point onwards it's now not expressing that relationship, but that should clarify why that's so important. Right, so just to go back to first explain what these numbers mean. These are numbers that figures, symbols that you'll see quite often, especially if you use Rhino. In SolidWorks, I think they use C0, C1, C2, C3, and I'm not even sure if C4 is correct. Might be incorrect. But certainly 1, 2, and 0, 1, 2, and 3 are correct. G0 simply means that a line has a relationship with another line. So I'm going to just draw in two arbitrary lines here, and I can join them. So as a joined, and you'll see if I select it, it's one item now. But if I click on the points, whatever changes I make to this straight line have no effect on this curve, and similarly whatever changes I make to this curve have no effect on this line. So that's there is a G0 relationship. The relationship between that line and that line is simply that they're connected. Okay, there was a quick edit there because I was screwing things up. Let me just demonstrate with this line. If I want to bend this, or I'm going to bend this line, just rotate it actually from this point to this point, upright. And now what you can see is that the degree to which any one point affects the other lines is 2 degrees, meaning that there's a separation. So this point doesn't directly affect the second point away from it. It affects the first point but not the second point. So I can pull this as much as I want, although that is affecting it a little bit. I think that's because this is just type in what. Right, it's a degree 3 line. So in fact this line has a degree 3, that's a G3 kind of relationship. In other words, what I do at this point actually affects 1, 2, 3 points. So I can 2 points in this case, right? But the greater the number of points that one has that need to affect, say for instance, a straight line, the larger the number one gets under this scheme here. So G4, I think you'd have to have 4 points in a line before 1 point would stop affecting the fourth point. If that doesn't make sense to you, let me know and I'll try and explain that better as well. Right, so this tangency and perpendicularity are super important. The other one, which I think we've already dealt with, is of course parallelism. whenever you dimension something, you're dimensioning, if it's the normal dimension line, just grab hold of one of those, like one like this, that's describing, let's just explode that, that's describing the distance between those two lines. It's not describing the distance between the 2 points. In other words, these two lines will stay at 42.85 millimeters apart continuously.